Satsang. So beautiful to have our hearts opened in love, in bhakti, in prayer. It's that juice flowing. They talk about bhakti ki ras, that juicy essence that bhakti connects us to. So, what a joy. So beautiful. Bahut badhiya. Bahut hi badhiya. Anand aa gaya. Wonderful. So, we'll start as always with one of our questions that have come in advance from our family joining online. And then we open it up to any questions that any of you have as we have this really beautiful opportunity to be together and to be here in this very sacred land on the first day of the year. It's so easy to just slip back to the way we've always been. But I love the new year, and I always really try to harness it. You know, as I was saying in Aarti last night or the night before, you know, in India, and by the Hindu calendar, we don't even consider this the new year. Our new year is in April, sometimes end of March, early April, springtime, lunar calendar, during the spring Navaratri. For Gujaratis, it's in the autumn, it's the day after Diwali, October, November. But new beginnings are such a beautiful opportunity, and we all need them. So whatever calendar we tend to follow, let's harness this one. Why not? It's like whenever there's holidays that are in our Hindu calendar, I always say, it doesn't matter if you're not Hindu, harness the holiday anyway. There's always something for all of us. In all of the holidays, there's something that is so universal and profound, whether it's our calendar, our religion, our language, our culture. Harness them all, because it's, you know, we get stuck. We get stuck in habits of thought, habits of actions, habits of living. Some habits are great. You know, you don't want to take a break from brushing your teeth every day. But then some habits are those that really could use a little bit of readjustment and shaking up. And these holidays are so great as just opportunities to shake up and rethink some of our habits. So really try to just not hurry your way through the first couple days of the year. Because then it just becomes like before. Nothing wrong with before, but it's nice to unfold a little bit more, blossom a little bit more, drop a little bit deeper. Take another step closer and closer to actually what we're here for. So, with that, how do I navigate my life and find peace when my adult daughter is not communicating with her father and her brother, and I am caught in the middle? My heart is breaking. I have tried to ask each of them to make peace, but my daughter is very stubborn, and I realize I cannot convince anyone to do anything that they are not ready for. I love my family, and I only want peace in our life. So raise your hand if you've ever tried to navigate some kind of a conflict within your family Anybody who's ever tried to navigate something like this? So it's most of us. And I say this so that the beautiful woman who sent this by email, whose name I won't mention lest her family members are tuning in and watching, but so that she knows, you're not alone. It's so frequent. Here's the dilemma. You can only invite someone to peace. You cannot force them to accept the invitation. Right? We say you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. And it's hard because there are times where we see such a clear wrong decision and such a clear right decision. Such a clear choice in favor of peace and love and harmony, and it just seems like, wouldn't it be so much easier? And yet, some people's karmic journeys in this lifetime are just not at a level to actually be able to accept all of those beautiful invitations. And we have to realize that. We all come here onto this earth with different karmic packages, different karmic journeys. And we can show the way, we can tell about the way, we can demonstrate the way, we can invite, but you can't force. And in your case, your daughter may have some lesson, as heartbreaking as it is, some lesson to learn through this lack of communication with her own father, her own brother, in that stubbornness. But there's another possibility. And she didn't give the details, so I don't know, but there's another possibility, which is we don't know why she's not talking to her father and brother. Maybe actually, rather than trying to convince her to let it go and talk to them and make peace and be friends and family again, maybe what this wife and mother's responsibility is to actually speak to her husband and son about whatever it is they may have done to have their daughter and sister suddenly decide that she doesn't want to talk to them. And again, I don't know. She hasn't given the details of the circumstance. But it's also really easy for us to jump on assuming, the daughter must be at fault. Somebody should talk some sense into her, make her come around, be a good girl. Whatever it is, let it go. It's your dad, it's your brother. Make peace. When sometimes, actually, what's required for reconciliation is accountability, acknowledgement of harm caused. And so I don't know why she stopped speaking to them. But it is really important to at least allow the possibility that she certainly may be stubborn, but that doesn't mean that she has unnecessarily, without cause, broken off relationship with her father and her brother. And we have to hold space for the possibility that the mother, the wife, rather than trying to convince the daughter to let it go, the very best thing that she could do might be to convince her husband and her son to actually acknowledge what they may have done to create that harm. Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, who knows? And to require a degree of accountability, making of amends, showing up, in some kind of reparations. So it's important on both sides. Sometimes we're so eager to just make peace, make peace, make peace, that we don't actually look at what is it that's been demolished in the bridge that used to exist. And before we just start throwing everything together to try to build a very kacha bridge out of whatever's around us, we might want to look at what dismantled the first one and what is required to actually lay a foundation of trust and rebuilding. Yeah, beautiful question. Other questions that anyone? Yes, in the back. Just share your name and share where you're from, and then your question.
Namaste. My name is Lohikax. I'm from Odisha. Wonderful. My question to you is, how can a person handle the loss of someone close to them?
Yeah. Dealing with loss. You know, when I first moved to India, I was taking a walk one day during the Aarti time. One of the evenings in the early days, I didn't go to Aarti that day, and I was taking a walk down the banks of Ganga. And I saw across the river, as I got quite far downriver, I saw cremations happening. The cremation ground for Rishikesh is across the river, downriver a bit. And my initial instinct was one of, oh my God, what must these people feel like burning a loved one while we over here have the audacity to sing, to dance, to celebrate, and what it must feel like to be mourning and watching these people celebrate. I watched the exact same thing in Kathmandu when we were there on the way to Kailash Mansarovar for the yatra. And Pujya Swamiji had started a beautiful aarti on the Bagmati River, right in front of Pashupatinath Mandir. And right across the river, a much narrower river than Ganga is, right across the river the cremations are happening. And I had the same thought. Oh my God, they're literally 30 feet in front of us. Because I come from a world where life and death are kept very separate. This is a time for mourning. This is a time for celebration. This is a place for mourning. This is a place for celebration. Don't smile, it's a funeral. Right? It's that type of culture. And I realized actually how beautiful and healthy it is in this culture. That death is seen and acknowledged and accepted as such an inherent part of life, and that it's not kept separate. And it's not a matter of like, don't let the kids see. I'll never forget the first time that I saw, for almost a full day until the family had come, somebody had passed away here. Naturally, they keep the body there until the family members come here in our mandir area. And I was aghast. I had never seen a dead body before. And I thought, oh my God, there's a dead body here. Because it was so out of my cultural frame of reference where death is supposed to be kept in the corner, in the closet, behind the black curtain. But here in India, it's actually really beautiful from a young age. We see death, we watch death. We stand by funeral pyres as the bodies of loved ones burn. And I realized that although the flames of the cremation and the flames of the arti seemed very safely separated by this river Ganga, very, very wide here, somewhat less wide in Kathmandu, but nonetheless a safe distance. That was only true on this most surface level. But the moment that you got even a few feet in the air, the flames from the cremation and the flames from the arti are meeting and mingling and merging into one in a way that you no longer can distinguish what was a flame of mourning and what was a flame of celebration. And I share this with you because to deal with the loss of a loved one is very much the way that we deal with pain, sorrow, challenge, loss, disappointment in our lives. It's probably the biggest challenge. It's probably the biggest opportunity. But it's the same way that we walk through the rest of life, which is with the awareness that it is an inherent, non-negotiable part of life. One of the downsides of living a long life is most of the people you know die. It's part of the package deal. If you don't want to lose loved ones, the only way to avoid that is die early, which is obviously not a very good solution. If you are blessed with a long life, a part of it's going to be losing not just one or two, but many, many, many or most of your loved ones. And so the first thing we do is we acknowledge it. What most of us do is we try to fight it, we try to deny it. It's not true. If I squeeze my eyes tightly enough together, maybe when I open them again, they'll still be alive. It'll just be a bad dream. It won't be true. So the first thing we do is we actually deeply acknowledge, here we are. Cannot rewind the situation. And the second thing we do, so we acknowledge first, and the second thing we do is we allow. And we allow whatever emotional response arises in us. We allow it to be there. There's no right way to grieve, and there's no wrong way to grieve. Everybody has their own timeline. Everybody has their own emotional response. Don't let anybody tell you the right way or the wrong way, or by when you should be done. It's very individual. Some kids, reach their full growth by the time they're 12 years old. You have 6-foot 12-year-olds. Some people are tiny, small, seemingly kind of prepubescent until they're 17, 18, and then suddenly, they've gone from being a kid to an adult in a day. Everybody has their own growth. Different plants. Some plants grow in one way. Bamboo, you watch the ground, nothing, then suddenly, seemingly overnight, different rates, different timelines. It's all perfect. So you allow. There will be sadness, great sadness. There may even be anger. Anger at the person for dying. Maybe their doctor told them quit smoking and they didn't. Maybe the doctor said exercise, cut out the French fries and pakoras, but they didn't. Maybe you kept reminding them to wear their seatbelt, but they didn't. So there may be anger at them. There may be anger at God. How dare you? It's not fair. He was a good person. She was a good person. And you just allow it. Don't let anybody tell you that's wrong. It's part of the package deal of grief. It's like khichdi. Lots of things mixed up together. But ultimately, actually a very healthy process. When tears are there, allow the tears. If anger's there, allow the anger. But you'll notice something in that kitchery mix is even in the midst of sadness, there'll be joy sometimes. Because sometimes what you'll have is an experience of knowing, oh my God, they're still here. Not in an illusion, not a delusion of I'm going to close my eyes and open them and they'll still be alive. But on a very deep level, you'll be able to access their presence. And that's the last part. So we acknowledge, we allow, and we access. The access is that part of them, that truth of them, that didn't die. Their body died. Their brain died. But their soul did not. Their essence did not. Their spirit did not. And so you allow yourself to access that. You can do it through meditation. You can do it through just being open. Because when someone was really a big part of your life, they don't stop being a big part of your life just because they've left their bodies. And you find that you can hear them, you can see them, you can feel them. And never let anybody tell you you're crazy. Because you actually can. And that's the beauty of it, is that we learn to see with an inner eye and to hear with an inner ear that can actually still access them, even though they don't have vocal cords to speak to us or a physical form that we can see. So you allow all of that. And then the last part is acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean I like it. Doesn't mean, hey, God, do that to somebody else I love. It just means I'm not fighting it anymore. I've allowed that experience to be a part of me. And I'm growing around it. So never expect that the sadness will go away. If you really loved them, it may never go away. And that's okay, it's beautiful. It's a presence that they still occupy in you. But what'll happen is you will grow around the sadness. The sadness will be like a really beautiful soil. And your life will blossom in that soil, grow from that soil. And you keep moving forward, but holding on to them still very deeply. Yeah, beautiful. Other questions? Yes.
Hello again. Namaste. My name is Isis, and I'm from San Francisco. And I have so many questions, but I will just choose one. I would love to hear your perspective and around, we have only a finite amount of time in the day. Yeah. So if you had to share what are the most impactful spiritual practices that can be beneficial for people to be doing, I would love to hear what has been most beneficial for you. And like if somebody only had 2 hours to do a sadhana, what would you recommend for like serious practitioners?
Great. So first of all, the good news is, even if instead of having 2 hours, you only had 20 minutes, let's make it more severe, for example. The good news is that you actually have 24 hours a day. Because one of the most important pieces of sadhana is it doesn't require me to be sitting like this in a dark room. It actually is that which I do when I stand up off the cushion, turn on the lights, walk out. It's how we speak, it's how we live. So that sadhana that you speak about is what you can think of as your battery charging time. And obviously, the longer you have to charge your batteries, the more oomph you get out of it. But even if you can only charge it for a little while, you've got the whole day to keep practicing. So let me think of a few eyes closed, seated like this practices, and then the moving through the day sadhana. So meditation, absolutely core, like if you've got a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of time, use it in meditation. It gives you, as you could say, the most bang for your buck. Like however many minutes you've got, if you can spend them dropping into meditation, it's going to be of incredible benefit to you. Emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, and even neurologically. We actually know that meditation changes our brain. The benefit of which being that even when you're not meditating, because you've changed your brain, that changed brain now goes with you. So it's an impact that lasts in a really powerful way. For me, the practice of mantra japa, recitation of a mantra, is an incredibly powerful practice. I have a very active mind. I'm an academic by heart. I'm a scientist. I'm an overthinker. My brain is just like on overdrive a lot. The practice of japa, along with the meditation practice, is for me the best way to still the mind. It's the powerful spiritual equivalent of throwing a bone to your dog that's jumping on you, or some toy, whatever you give it, whether it's a pet, whether it's your toddler that's just bugging you all, touching you and grabbing or jumping or whatever they're doing, and you want to focus on something else. And so you hand them something. Play with this, gnaw on that. And you get a few minutes of quiet. Japa takes that idea, but then adds the alchemic power of the sound of the Sanskrit Vedic mantras. So what it does is it gives the mind that's all over the place something to do, but that something that you've given it in and of itself is alchemically powerful, and a transmission and a transformation. So it's this huge benefit. And it's something that I do in my seated practice in the morning, but then it's something that and in the evening, but then it's something that I also do all day long as much as I can. Whenever I find myself just thinking, sometimes you have to think about something. But otherwise, if you just find the mind doing what the mind does, it's kind of purposeless and benefitless and aimless and sometimes even harmful. The moment you realize you're doing that, just start chanting your mantra. It also is a life raft, because sometimes the mind can get in really dangerous spirals, and sometimes it feels like we're literally drowning. Whether it's anxiety, whether it's desire, whether it's aversion, whether it's whatever it may be, but it feels like it has just grabbed your attention, grabbed your awareness, grabbed the mind, and that you're struggling to stay afloat. Japa serves for me as this life raft that if I can just grab on to the mantra, it actually pulls me out of that spiral. Then, throughout the day, the practice I share all the time in here and everywhere, which is that practice of neti neti. Not this, not this. And it's just a practice, a remembrance of not taking on other people's projections. You're wonderful, you're awful, you're beautiful, you're ugly, you're this, you're that. But also not taking on your own projections and separation. This eye sees in union. These eyes see form, shape, color. And it's great. It enables us to navigate through our world, to walk, to drive, to bicycle. It's important to see form, to see distance, to see movement, to see shape. Holding something at an arm's length. What about oneness? This is the eye that sees it. And so a practice of aiming to see self in all, rather than seeing other, men, women, old, young, tall, short, whatever it may be, rather than that, can you literally try to see the divine, that eternal soul, genderless, ageless, bank account free, whatever it may be, that eternal soul in all. Yeah. Just turn it on. There you go.
And going off of what you were sharing around surrender, can you share with us where is the balance between self-effort and will and surrender?
Great. Surrender does not mean don't try. This is a total misunderstanding that we all have around surrender. It's not complacency. It's not giving up. It's not giving in. It's not weak. It's not lazy. It is none of those things. Surrender simply says, I have no control over the fruits of my actions. I have control over my actions. I'm learning to get control over the thoughts that precede and instigate my actions. But I have no control over the reactions of others. I plant the seeds. What sprouts, what doesn't, what flowers, what doesn't, what grows, what doesn't. I have no control over that. So surrender is actually coming back into alignment with real, truth, dharma. What is in my hands? So absolutely self-effort, constantly, over that over which you have control. And then surrender over that. Tell that story. You make up a different one. And the story that you make up could be anything, but I love the idea of saying, you know what? Maybe 3 minutes ago, this guy got a phone call from the hospital that his son has been in an awful accident. And if he doesn't get to the hospital in the next 5 minutes, he's not going to see his son alive again. You see how it feels different inside you? Your car was in the exact same situation both times. But one becomes a story of stress, anxiety, a victim of the world that almost killed you today. And another becomes a story of compassion, of being part of a sort of joint experience here on planet Earth where other people are suffering. And it changes dramatically, like night and day, the way it feels inside. So taking your example, you go to school, you don't do well. One story is you're stupid, you're lazy, you're worthless. What if you tell a different story? I was into something else. I was making art. I was making music. I was playing sports. I was focusing on my social connections. I was struggling with a personal problem, a family problem. I have dyslexia. Can't tell you how many kids in my class, prior to the days where everybody was thinking about, different ways of learning and learning challenges, I feel like when I was in school, 35, 40 years ago in high school, was kind of the beginning of people starting to talk about things like dyslexia. And there were so many kids in my class, or one of my best friends included, who in early days had always felt like she wasn't good at this, wasn't good at that. Turned out she was brilliant, but dyslexic. And the moment that they realized that and gave her an extended amount of time to take her exams, let her do homework in a different way, there you go, straight A's, off to medical school. What I will tell you is that if you didn't do well in school, there is a reason. The reason is not that you are stupid, lazy, or worthless. I promise. There is some other reason. You weren't interested, you were doing something else. There was something going on in your mind, in your heart, in your family, in your neighborhood. Or some aspect of your ability to concentrate. Your brain, your neurology, whatever it may be. But there is a story that is not only a better story than you're stupid, you're worthless, you're not a good student. Not only is it better, but it's actually truer. And the dilemma is we don't always necessarily know that story. Maybe you don't remember what was going on at that time or this time. It doesn't matter. Make up a story. But write a new story for yourself. If you had to put yourself back in the mindset of you when you were 15, or 16, or 17, what were you thinking about? Because surely, I promise you, you were not sitting at home going, I've got nothing to do, but I'm not going to study. I'll show them I'm going to fail all my exams. You weren't planning and plotting it like that. Surely something else was going on that was engaging you rather than you studying. Or maybe you did study very hard. But maybe for whatever reason you couldn't get the help that you needed. Or maybe you understood the material, but you got into the exam room and had an anxiety attack. Or maybe you'd been up all night because there was a family fight or whatever it was. You skipped breakfast, drank too much coffee, the caffeine made you nauseous and you couldn't concentrate. A lot of us have probably been there in school. Right? So many reasons. Start making a list. What are the other stories? And then write a brand new one. Because it is never, never too late. One of my very best friends in the world wanted to be a vet, a veterinarian, when we were teenagers. He then shifted into wanting to do medicine. So he always knew he wanted to do something in medicine. But through a variety of life circumstances, his siblings were in LA, his brother was in the Hollywood industry, he got kind of pulled off of the medical track, told, oh, you're not that smart. He wasn't a, A+ star student on earth to be a great academic. Maybe I'm an artist, I'm a musician, maybe I like working with my hands. Maybe something else comes much more intuitively to me. There's certainly, especially in today's day and age, there is certainly nothing that says that you're actually better off with higher education degrees. So write yourself a brand new story of possibility, of freedom, of potential, of what is it that excites you? Not somebody else's criteria, not just the idea of what's going to bring you money because then you think you'll be happy. What's going to make you happy doing it? What excites you to do? What do you want to offer to this planet? And then figure out what you've got to do to get it. Do you need a degree? Do you need these skills? Rewrite the story. Yeah, great. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. A beautiful beginning of the new year. Beautiful morning, New Year's morning to our family joining us online from all over the world. And I look so forward to seeing hopefully most of you tomorrow. Anyone who's leaving Rishikesh, sadly, tomorrow, I hope to see you back very, very soon. And so much love to all of you.